Campoli trying to clear it. Ball shoots, scores!
Awesome. Okay, thanks for joining, Marty. And it's going to be a pleasure to get to know your story and a lot of insights. Obviously, have quite the hockey experience playing junior hockey in Ontario and then getting a scholarship, going to NCAA. You were the captain there for 3 seasons, which was pretty cool. And then obviously, had a good taste of pro hockey as well. So you've got lots of experience and now doing all the training and work with hockey players on nutrition and the other parts of the game as well. And giving back. So definitely appreciate you having on. And the first thing I like to do is just kind of get, if you want to just share your story, some of the highlights of your journey to, where you got to and where you are now is a great place to start.
Yeah, for sure. I was actually born out in Fort McMurray, and when I was very young, we moved to the Toronto area. I played the majority of my hockey when we moved to Brampton. So Chinguacousy Blues. I don't think a lot of kids on the call are going to know what the Chinguacousy Blues were, but kind of morphed into the Brampton Maroons, and I'm not sure what they are now, but that's where I grew up. So I played hockey in Brampton. And then probably around like the Pee-wee age, I made the jump to the GTHL. First team I played for was the Reps, and then for 2 years after that, I played for the Rebels. I actually came back home and played junior for the Bramley Blues. Again, probably another team that not many people know, but they don't exist anymore. But back in the day, it was a heck of a team. Players like Camilleri, Amiot. There was a ton of players that came through that system.
Oh, nice.
When I got there, we weren't as good, but I remember watching the really good players.
Yeah.
So I actually played 3 years there. I got drafted to Owen Sound in the 16th round. So again, the rounds just kept going. So you just kept picking. At the time, I had already committed to go to UMass Lowell. And I remember it was a weird experience. I was just kind of playing junior hockey. And my coach came in after the game and they say, "Hey, UMass Lowell's here to talk to you." And I had no idea what UMass Lowell was. I had no idea what college hockey was. It just wasn't a big option back when I played. And I remember going out talking to the coach. I said, "Oh, that was pretty cool. Like, they're from, just outside Boston, and apparently it's pretty good hockey, and they play in Hockey East." I had no idea what any of this stuff was. Started to do my research and realized that this is probably a route that I should put some serious interest into. I was very fortunate that they offered me something. Took the opportunity, went to Boston, went to UMass Lowell for 3 years. Amazing experience with the school and the hockey. And just being a part of something like that was incredible. And again, I had no idea what college hockey or NCAA Division I hockey was like. And, my first game was in, I believe it was Colorado. And then my first home game, our game in the conference was UNH, and you're in front of thousands of people, and I'm coming from a Brampton arena that had a couple hundred. It was an experience. And then after college, I actually had some injuries my senior year, and that's kind of a side story that got me into strength conditioning. But I was fortunate to have someone in the Detroit Red Wings organization like me. I had one person, so they went to bat for me, and I got to go to camp. Their main camp in Traverse City. And I think I lasted maybe 3 or 4 days and realized that I probably should have worked a lot harder and shot more pucks and worked out more watching those guys play like Datsuk and Chelios and just seeing how good they were. So it was a bit of a wake-up call for me. I spent a year playing pro in Toledo. And then the following year, I spent a year in Idaho Cincinnati and then Idaho. And then I made the decision to jump over to Europe. So I had the opportunity, someone approached me to go to Belfast and go back to school and get my master's. So I took that opportunity, went to Belfast with my girlfriend at the time, my now wife. Incredible experience, nicest people in the world. Very tough hockey fans. They like the rough side of the game, but it was really a great league. And at the time, the same thing, I had someone said, you're going to go to Belfast. What do you know? I was like, I don't know much, but I know I'm going back to school and I know I get to keep playing hockey. And then after that, I went to Lawrence-Cog in Norway. And then after that, I came back and I finished my career here in the CHL in South Dakota.
Nice.
After
go ahead. Yeah.
After hockey, I was always training. So
yeah.
When I was at school, I was always part of a strength conditioning program out of varsity hockey. I'm sure some of the people out there know that name, but
yeah,
I was a strength coach and still playing hockey. So that's kind of kick-started me from being a hockey player and then going the other direction and being a hockey coach, hockey trainer, and a strength coach.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty cool. And then so you want to maybe just speak just a bit to your roles now. It's obviously you've transitioned to that and you got your own business and working with Everest a bit and the director there. So you've got some, you've got a lot of things obviously on the plate, but it's a bit of weird timing with the COVID situation. But I don't know if you want to just briefly talk about what your current roles are.
Yeah. So I spent some time at varsity training and kind of honing my craft, and very grateful for my time there. I worked a ton of hours with a lot of different skill levels of hockey players. After that, I had the opportunity to coach. So I coached in the Rebels organization for a few years. And then I was an assistant GM and assistant coach for the Georgetown Raiders for 5 years.
Okay, nice.
After that, while I was still working as a strength coach. Around my 5th year, I had my son and realized that I probably needed to stay home a little bit more instead of working all day and then going to the rink and then never seeing anybody. So I made the transition and had a great opportunity with Everest to kind of step in as their strength and conditioning director, working with hockey players and then all other sports as well. We do lacrosse, soccer, baseball, golf. And this has been my 4th year. So we got halfway through my 4th year there.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, one of the things that, I always find really interesting is like, through career paths and your mindset throughout your career, obviously, you kind of come from, small town, humble beginnings and kind of worked your way up and all of a sudden you're in the NCAA. And I don't know if you want to just talk about those decisions going from, minor hockey to junior hockey to then NCAA. And obviously you kind of, jumped through those hoops fairly well and had pretty good transitions, right? Like you did pretty well even in your first year at NCAA in your first full year, even in junior, right? So I don't know if you want to just talk about the mindset you had going from those kind of big jumps in your career.
Yeah, it was always something new when a new door opened. And I was always taught to approach things to just be open, have an open mind, always try to be the hardest working person on a team if you are on a team. And when my first year at junior, I just finished my minor career with the Rebels. And again, I didn't have options. I was, I was small. I was 5'10". I was 145 pounds, soaking wet. I went to junior like that. And even when I got my opportunity and got a scholarship, Owen Sound, when they came knocking on the door, they were fairly interested. And I said, I just can't, take the chance. I got to go to this route. I got to go NCAA because I think I need a couple more years to play in the back in the day wasn't the OJHL, but with the Bramley Blues. And I remember going to camp at Owen Sound and guys were monsters and they were huge. And it was kind of this, another wake up call when I went there. It was like, I think I could play, but I don't think I'm ready. Physically, I'm not ready. I'm not, there's guys out here that are just throwing me around. So in a way, I knew in my mind and talking to my parents that I needed to stick a couple more years and just kind of see how I did. And I was in a good spot where I was able to play. I think that was the main thing for me. I got an opportunity to play. We were an okay team, but I was given the opportunity to play. And I think because of my work ethic, I earned some trust and I just earned some extra rope with my coaches along the way. Now, when I went to school, it was that same thing. I was like, once I got to my last year in junior, I knew I was preparing and researching to go to that next level. Now I was going from, 19-year-old, 20-year-old to playing against guys who were 24, who were just, now I'm talking real men. And, I thought guys were huge in the OHL when I went to my first camp. And then I look at these guys when I went to visit and they got beards and, they're men, they're driving around and it was an experience as well. So the doors just seemed to keep opening just because I think I just kept playing. I loved hockey and I just kept playing. At no point did I think, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. And the second part is I just kept working. And I think the work went with the passion for it. And the work never seemed that bad. It always seemed like something I was always drawn to just because I loved playing the game of hockey so much.
No, I love that. And definitely like, we've talked to like a lot of guys like, oh, do I go to junior next year? Do I stay midget? And talking about those, just getting to play, right? And you love the game. You just want to play. You want to keep developing and obviously, and then working hard, like you said, like you hit on the two big pieces and you do those things, your career definitely progresses. And then one thing that I, also like to touch on, that's always a big one is, your confidence level. Cause you're as a forward, you put up some decent numbers at all the different leagues. And I don't know if you want to talk about, going into, times where you're like doubting yourself at times, and everybody does it to various extents, but obviously you stayed pretty consistent in your ability to perform. And so obviously, your mindset is a big part to that, and how you maintain an accurate self-image and not get tied down and thrown off by the ups and downs of one game to the next or one shift to the next. So I don't know if you want to maybe just speak to some of the obviously struggles you had and overcoming those throughout those time periods as well. But those are definitely always good insights for everyone.
Yeah, I think I got to give a lot of credit to the way I was raised. I was, and I deal, I work with a lot of athletes now, and I had the opportunity to coach them and talk to them and get inside their head. And as a hockey coach and a strength coach, I'm around them a lot where they can talk about things and things they're going through. And I remember someone saying like it was okay to feel sorry for myself, or like if I was that was never promoted. It was always like, just keep going, just keep going. If you fail or something happens that you didn't want to happen, it's fine as long as you keep going and you're going to learn from that situation. When I was in the moment when I was playing, I just felt like, and I think back now and I'm like, oh, I went through a lot of different things, but at the time nothing seemed like a big deal. I never thought about like if I had a bad shift or if I had a bad game that my next game would be bad or it would affect my next game. And I think the only way I can think about this is I got to give all the credit to my parents. Because I had coaches, and back in my day, coaches were hard. Like they're on you, they're yelling, they demand a lot. It's a little bit different than now. I'm sure there's some similarities, but at times it was a pressure cooker, and I never felt bothered by coaches screaming or yelling or me making a mistake. And I was never afraid to make a mistake. And I'm sure I made thousands of them. Like I make thousands of mistakes every day in terms of like, my business and what I'm doing in coaching. And, but when I look back, I'm like, oh, I went through some pretty good adversity. I had some injuries, I had some concussions. My senior year in college, I never missed a game. I never missed a practice. I never missed a workout. A couple of games in, I was diagnosed with a hernia, tried to play through a hernia. And I remember being in Minnesota playing the first game in a tournament. And then the second game, I just couldn't play. I couldn't get out of bed. I was coughing. I was in so much pain every time I coughed. And calling my parents, I remember crying on the phone because of all the adversity I went through. And I was, this is my senior year. And I just remember them telling me, it's going to be fine. Just keep going, do the right thing. And I think that was always just a theme. It was never, if I had a bad shift, my confidence went to a 6. Then if I had a good shift, my confidence went to a 9. Then if I had a bad, that was never a part of the equation. There was no reaction.
Yeah. No, I love that. Those are great examples. And it's always definitely, we're to a degree very much a product of our environment and especially our mindset. And that's, one of the things why, I spend a lot of time talking about it, because a lot of people in our environment often not teaching us that kind of concept. And you were fortunate to have that. And that, I like that slogan of like, just keep going. It's like, regardless of what happens, you gotta keep going forward. Like, it's, unless you don't like hockey and don't love it, or you love your sport, then you quit and you like find something else you do like. But, and everybody's going to have career changes. But if you truly want something, like you're going to have bumps along the way, but if you have perspectives, like, well, I'm going to go forward no matter what. And you have a healthy perspective. So I thought that was great. And especially like, dealing with some injuries like that, like you said, in your last year at college and at UMass. I don't know, UMass Lowell, right? So
There's UMass Lowell. That was the
yeah,
school I went to, and
yeah,
UMass Amherst. Amherst is
yeah.
the
Is the other
much
one,
larger school. Yeah.
Okay, so UMass Lowell, and right, so like everyone's going to face those kind of adversities in the career, and it's always good to kind of have those stories and examples of like, yeah, how do you deal with that, and having that mindset, I think, of just keep going is a good takeaway. The other thing I wanted to maybe jump on, like, I would say it's probably pretty unique. You were a captain in your second year and college as well. So I don't know if you want to maybe speak to how that kind of transpired and what that was like, and maybe just some leadership principles, because obviously, that speaks to your ability to, work within a team, be a team player. That's always a big thing with any team sport. So I want to just talk about your experience there and being a captain for 3 years.
Yeah, I was very fortunate, and part of it too was we were a very young team, so we had a lot of my freshman year. There was a lot of us. I think we came in and there was 15 of us. So I think that got dwindled down a little bit as we went, but we had a lot of graduating players as well. So the way it worked was you got voted in. There was a vote, and then I'm sure it went to the coaches, and then like anything else, the coaches had their second look at it to make sure that things happen the way they want it to happen. But I was never a rah guy. I was never a guy I'm standing up in the dressing room, I'm screaming at guys, I'm calling guys out. That wasn't me. I'm more of an introvert. I still am. I think one of the things that pushes me out of that comfort zone is my coaching and strength conditioning. But at the time, I feel like just my work ethic and the way I did things, that's why I had that opportunity to be pushed into that role. And it did push me out of my comfort zone. Growing up, I had the ability to, I think just lead by example. I think that was one of my biggest strengths, was just kind of not call people out, but just say, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And that's the way I feel like everyone else should do it. And just try to be the guy that was every day putting in their best effort, so that if something did come up, like, there's been a few times where, I had to stand up and say things, but it wasn't empty. I wasn't standing up and saying, hey, you got to do this. And that guy in his mind's going, well, you don't do that. I'm not doing that. So I think a lot of my time was just backing up what I was doing with my work ethic and what I did on a daily basis and my routine. And I think that's why I got picked for those roles, is just the kind of maybe a quiet leader type.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think that's always, it's kind of the more, leading from behind and leading by example versus trying to like crack the whip on people is, most people don't really respond to that. Right. So no, those are definitely good takeaways and lessons about leadership and doing what's right versus like, what do people think you should do? Is you're just doing what you felt was best. And we talk a lot about with our mindset, if you own who you are and where you are, and you're keeping a healthy perspective, and you're staying focused on what you can control, automatically a better leader. Like you're just going to do a lot of innate leadership behaviors because you're in the right headspace, and clearly with your mentality about just keep moving forward. And that's, owning who you are, not getting tied down to results and other things, helped probably shape those leadership abilities too. So those are great insights. One thing I find always very interesting as well is the ability to consistently work hard at your best. And so, as an athlete, you've talked about work ethic already a handful of times, but I'm sure you can also speak to it now as a coach and strength conditioning coach. Like you're seeing athletes in the gym and their ability to show up day in, day out, push themselves and give their best effort and have the right attitude while they're there. That's a huge difference maker, right? If you're giving it your best that day, or it's just a little bit not quite, that adds up over time. And it's a big thing, I try to impose, especially during this kind of current situation where people might be, losing some motivation and they, slack a little bit or think it's good enough. Those little things make a big difference. And I know I can clearly see that that's, big part about who you are and who you are as an athlete. I'm sure as a coach and strength conditioning coach as well. I don't know if you want to maybe just speak to that and your experiences on, that ability to, have it clear in your mind that, you're there to work and you're going to put in your best effort. I don't know. There's lots you can go with that, but I'll just throw it your way and see how you want to take it.
Yeah, it's important. It's one of those things. I think we all know the answers. Whatever age you are, hockey player, if you're a non-hockey player, you're playing another sport. We know what we should do. There's a lot of distractions in life, and it's easy. And you're right. Like right now, you could stay up till 3 a.m. and then you can get up at 2 p.m. It's easy, and no one's going to say anything about it, and because there's a lot of serious things going on in the world right now. But I think at the end of the day, we can justify anything we want to do. If I want to get up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. and get a workout in, I can justify the reasons why I should do that. If I'm a hockey player, okay, I have a goal. I got to connect my actions to that goal. That's me justifying it. Okay, it makes sense in my mind. There's going to be times when I don't want to do it. Those days, you just got to force yourself. You got to remind yourself of that ultimate goal and be like, oh yeah, that's my reminder. You can also justify sleeping into 12. You can say, yesterday, you know what? I worked pretty hard yesterday. I did some stick handling. I did my workout that my trainer sent me. I ate pretty well. Today, I'm going to allow myself to sleep in, and I'm going to get up maybe at like 12 or 1 p.m. Half your day's gone. And don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect. I did that many times when I was younger. I can't do it anymore with young kids, but it happens. But I think sometimes you really got to look at your own decisions and why you're making those decisions and be honest with yourself. And I think as long as it doesn't happen, and I think this is a James Clear quote, The Power of one of his Habits book, but don't let it happen 2 days in a row. Yeah. Or don't let things happen twice in a row. Once is okay. Yeah. You let it happen twice, now that's becoming your habit. Your habit is now you're skipping, you're missing. Yeah. And we're not on an island. We're not by ourselves. Every single person, I would argue, in the world has this type of thought and struggles with doing the things they're supposed to do when they don't want to do it. So sometimes we feel like we're by ourselves and like, this is hard for me. And sometimes it helps me to remind myself that other people feel like this. And I'm like, oh, other people do this too. It's okay, I can do this. Sometimes I relate things to like a cold tub. When I was injured, I had to try to freeze my hernia. I had to freeze it so I could just play. The cold tub, the first 2 minutes, your brain's going, stop, get out, get out, get out, get out. Like, this is the worst thing. You've got a bucket of ice in there, you're freezing. But if you get over that 2 minutes, you're fine. So sometimes it's just a matter of starting and then creating a little bit of momentum, and then you're fine. Yeah. But it's that 0 to 10, that 0 to 20, that 0 to 30 minutes. That's the hardest part.
Yeah, that inertia. Yeah, get the ball rolling. No, I love the way you brought that up, and it's on one of my list of things to bring up in one of our group calls and challenges, like do the cold tub challenge. It's just pure mental. Can you will yourself to deal with a cold tub and then stay? Like, I had one of my athletes we're working with told me, and he's doing the cold tubs. It's like, I've been doing cold tubs. Like, I did it for 15 seconds. I'm like, 15 seconds? I was like, what is that? And he's like, I got to a minute. I'm like, a minute? You still haven't done it. Like, I was like, you got to do like 10 minutes. Like, it's like, once you get over that minute, 2 minute mark, now you're like, it takes that mental strength and your ability to, separate and, push through the pain. Like, that's, when you talk about working out, like, it hurts, but and like, we want to associate that as a good hurt. Like, we want that, just like the cold tub. Like, it stings. It's like, if you're freezing, but it's something you want. If that, maybe you don't always want it, but but it's something you want at times, depending on the thing. But it's like literally forcing people to get uncomfortable, and push through that uncomfortable.
Build resilience.
Yeah, it's just building resilience.
That's how you build that resilience. And it kind of just, every time you do it, it gets a little bit easier. It doesn't do something hard every day, and it makes everything else easier. It really does. And being home, I don't have, we have assault fan bikes at the school where the gym is, and my fellow coach, we jump on them every day just to kind of do something hard, because it makes everything else the rest of the day have a little bit of perspective. And it's like, oh, you do something hard in the morning, maybe it's a cold shower, which I'm a big believer in having a cold shower first thing in the morning. One, it wakes you up, but two, it right away mentally, it's like that. I really don't want to have a cold shower. Like it's the middle of January. I'm cold. I got to go outside, but I just do it anyways because I know I feel better, and mentally I feel better as well.
No, 100%. And then back to the other kind of concept there, where it's just like, you know, we can justify one of two ways. You can justify a reason to do it, and you can justify not. And one of the other things when you think about habits and work ethic is, you know, which is a habit in a way, is that we don't always do things that are, you know, logically make sense. We do things off a rationale. We do it more on how we feel, and we're very emotional beings. And, you know, like people know not to smoke and it's not good for you. People still smoke, right? We know the benefits of exercise as a society, yet people, not everybody exercises. And as an athlete, you might know it's not good to be on your phone that much, or up this late, or to skip too many days of workouts, or any really. And yet we do. And because we haven't made that justification strong enough with the emotional part of what we truly want. And like you said, it's like, you got to go back and make that justification clear. One of the things we did recently in our group calls was just get very clear. What are all the benefits to doing that habit related to what you want to be and what you really value, which is being an elite athlete. And just make that really clear in your mind so you can feel it. And now you're more likely to be consistent. So I love the way you talk about that. And I love the doing something hard every day makes everything else easier for sure. So, and one of the other lines that probably ties into that too, which you can relate to, is, you know, the best athletes are the ones that train the hardest. And then therefore, you know, you're hard on yourself. It makes everything else easier. Right. And, you know, you make practice really hard, you train really hard. Well, then when you get to games, everything's easier because you've already done all the hard work in a way. And it makes the games feel easier. It makes your career go easier because you're putting in that work. So no, I loved how you spoke to all of that. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to it. It's always a big concept, but
no, it's the only thing I was going to say there is sometimes we wait for motivation, and usually motivation comes after the action, after you actually do something, then you feel motivated. But we get caught in that headspace of, I don't really feel motivated. And it's like, well, you're kind of told that you're supposed to be motivated to do something, but that's just not the reality in life. It's you do something and then you feel some motivation, then you do a little bit more. But if you can be consistent, we always tell athletes in the gym, a bad day is better than no day. If you just don't show up, but if you get out of bed and you force yourself to show up and you get something done, it's better than nothing. It might not be the best day you've ever had, but if you look back and like you just said, you add up those days, that makes the biggest difference in the world. Consistency in training or anything you want to accomplish is probably the most important thing. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just got to be consistent. You got to show up. And what happens is you elevate yourself above everyone else who is skipping days and not showing up and not doing what they're supposed to be doing. But yeah, it's hard because sometimes we judge what we're doing. Like it wasn't very good. It wasn't great. It wasn't my best performance, but it's like, hey, you did it. You showed up.
Yeah. You got to give yourself that pat on the back, and that ties in with that confidence and self-image and being your own best friend. And the other thing I like how you said, like, you know, a lot of people are looking for external motivation, or it's like, oh, I can't find the motivation. I don't see it, or I don't have it right now. But everybody has it. Like you have to look within, and some days that the fire is kind of small and you don't see it. But if you go and look within, you can come up and justify. I like when you use the word, you can justify a reason to do it. You got to look within. You can't justify outwardly like, well, I got to do it for all these things. No, you got to, look within. That's that intrinsic motivation, which, there's, that's the best and the best kinds. When you love something, you're doing something because it's meaningful to you. So, and we're getting pretty deep into motivation now, but it's might be going on. We're getting too theoretical here. I stopped doing all the theory stuff in my PhD, so I wouldn't have to go too much into it. But anyway, so yeah, no, those are great points, and we'll do a couple more questions and we can open it up. But there's a couple other things I wanted to get your perspective on. One then being, as now in your role of a coach and guiding, if you have like suggestions and for athletes that are wanting to get to that next level and keep improving, what would be some of the main, recommendations and suggestions that you would have from a training perspective, some of the things we just talked about, but also even just, mindset, and career path. What would be some of the main lessons that you've learned and you would share with some of our athletes?
I think looking back on my own journey, and again, joking when I went to camp saying, I wish I practiced more, I worked harder. I think it really comes down to routine, like a daily, if you can set up a daily routine, and you don't have to be 100%, but if you leave things for chance, time goes by very quickly. That's what I realized as I've gotten older is, time will just keep going. And if you haven't set up a routine to say, okay, I know I have to do that, and that today. I'm going to get up. I'm going to, have a healthy breakfast. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to foam roll. I'm going to train. And then the next day, I know I have these markers to hit. And again, you don't have to get completely out of control with trying to fill your day, but have a plan, have a routine. And that goes back to that idea of the habits take over. Like your brain and your body's very smart, and it gets used to doing things. And when you get out of that routine, you won't feel as good. And you'll be like, okay, I got to get back into my routine. I think that helps a lot. And I think just going back to the idea of being consistent, you don't got to hit home runs every single day. You just got to keep being consistent, showing up, doing the little things. And you made a great point about, some of the best athletes and hockey players in the world, sometimes they get pegged as like, they're just born like that. These people are born like that. Like if you watched and you witnessed how much they did compared to someone who just kind of, maybe they played some minor hockey and played some junior and that's it. The best rise to the top, and I know this probably from making a mistake and looking back and researching, is they did it every day. And they didn't do it because they were punching into a job. Mm-hmm. They loved doing it. Like they loved the process. They loved doing things that they weren't good at and then getting better at those things, where I think sometimes we always practice the things we want to work at or we are good at, because it feels good to do the things you're good at. And we do that over and over, but instead of giving and looking yourself in the mirror and saying, I'm really not good at X, I'm going to work on that until I get it to the point where I want it to be. I think those things are huge for just kind of slowly, incrementally getting better and moving up the ranks. But if you love what you're doing, it definitely makes it that much easier to do.
No, I love all of those, and I love all the things. And one of the ones that I really like there, we've talked a lot about, is daily routines, and especially in the current situation, it's a great time to focus on developing your routines, because everyone's routine just got flipped. And so now is a great time to you can completely rebuild your own routine, and develop new healthy routines and invest in, your mindset to make, and focus on how you can build better routines. Right. So, because some routines aren't easy to build. Right. And then once you get them going and you spend that time and energy, then you can just keep adding to it and building on it. So I like that. And then the other line I like, I'm big on the word consistent, and, but the concept of the World Series is won by singles and doubles, not necessarily home runs. And a lot of kids and athletes want to just, they want the big home run. They want I want to score the big goal that looks awesome. You don't make the NHL getting a highlight reel goal. You make the NHL doing the singles and the doubles, the little things that add up over time. And, and it's that consistent, even it's just the daily foam roll, the daily little stick hand, those little things. That's what gets you to the next level, not the big flashy highlight reel goal you scored one time. I kind of joke around a lot when I start playing men's league a little bit. And I'd see this guy's sick in men's league. It was he never played anywhere because he's got really nice hands. He can do these cool moves. He doesn't know how to play the game. I kind of laugh about some of the men's league guys we play against. And and I find that analogy where it's our team wasn't as fast or even really as skilled, but we had a couple other guys that played in the O and stuff. And we would just always win because we were just a smarter team and knew and we had done some of those little things. And these guys were all worried about scoring their highlight reel goal in men's league.
That's a good point. And I always, there's so many highlights out right now, and we're bombarded with highlights. And I love highlights. Hockey's not on right now, but when it was, you get up in the morning, watch the highlights. when that's all you see, and you got to realize there's another whole part of a game where that player who maybe did something incredible in the game did absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
But they just did the right things every shift. Like, they might get 10 shifts, they might get 15 shifts, whatever it is, but they might only have the puck on their stick for a minute, 60 seconds for a full game. But I guess from my experience, coaching is a lot of the times the players get stuck on the highlights. They see the highlights, and that's what they want to do is like, well, no, watch a full game.
Yeah.
Watch away from the puck. Watch what everyone else is doing. Watch how many times, either like Sidney Crosby or Connor McDavid touches the puck. That's the high end. Now think about everybody else.
Yeah. That's
the game of hockey. And that's probably every other sport too, but the highlights are great. They're fun to watch and they're cool.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I use the line a lot, like Patrick Kane. Like, how many times do you think he tries to toe drag in a game? I'm like, not like, you might see the one that he does, but like he only does it like once, maybe right. Like, and then people see him do it once. It's like, well, I got to try it every shift. It's just, anyways, we're going on a bit of a coaching tangent and rant, but the last thing I'll do, and then we'll open up for questions, is I know you have some online programs, and I'm sure you can have some great resources for athletes and specifically hockey players. I'm not sure you just want to maybe tell some of the listeners and people on the call even how a bit about those and what some of the benefits would be if they're interested.
Yeah, that'd be great. It's something I created. Online programming kind of come in the last couple of years, and I always wanted to do something where it was all access. Hockey players get everything they need in terms of off-ice training, on-ice training, in-season, off-season, nutrition resources. So I actually launched it just back in January 15th and created a membership where players at different levels, they can go in, they can pull programs out, they can follow programs, whether it's on the ice or off the ice or stick handling, and it gives them a plan. So part of the reason why I did that, growing up, I didn't do a lot of training. I just kind of played. And I didn't always do the smartest off-ice training just because I didn't know what to do. So the idea was to get a place where, I've been doing strength and conditioning for 16 years and coaching for 16 years and working with hockey players, is put all my knowledge and everything that I've learned and the things that have worked in one place where players can go and they can access that, become a member. And then we also do updated videos every week or every month of just going on the ice and explaining different situations or drills, and trying to go more into the mind of and a thought process of what happens on the ice for players rather than just kind of like do this or do that. It's, if you do this, what does the goalie do? Those are really the videos I'm trying to develop. But yeah, it's just a place where they can go. There's a lot of information on there, and they can kind of just at the right time and where they are with their development, they can pull a specific program and follow that program that gives them a weekly plan, a monthly plan, or a yearly plan if that's what they're looking for.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And what's the Marty Strength, I think, is at Instagram? I don't know if you want to maybe just.
Yeah, so my hockey Instagram is Marty Strength _hockey, and then the website is martystrength.com.
Awesome. So we'll make sure the guys get access to that, and we'll follow up with some more posts. Well, thanks so much. I've got so much already, and I can keep going with questions, but it'll be good to let some of the players here. Let's open it up. Yeah. If they have any questions, you guys can raise your hand, put it in the comment section. I know we got one here already. So Cam asks, what did you study at UMass Lowell? And also, what did you study for your master's? Did this help you become a trainer, or what advice would you have for somebody who wants to become a trainer after their playing career? That's a good question.
So this is, you guys would like the answer. I studied psychology and law at UMass Lowell, and I got my master's in business. So at no point did I study, I took kinesiology in high school, but nothing beyond that. So I never went to school to be a strength coach, but trying to think here, sophomore year, that's when I came home for the summer. The person I work with now, and one of my strength coaches, and we work together, and we do summer training, and we train at Everest. Jeff Schmogi, we started a program with 11 players, and that was just an off-season training program. And we literally just stole. He went to school at UMass Lowell as well. I was a freshman, he was a senior, so that's how we met. So we only spent 1 year together. We literally just took our strength coaches program, brought it back for the summer, and started training athletes.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I started. And we started with 11 athletes, primarily hockey players. And then we grew that over the years to where we were training about, I think, just under 200 hockey players a day on a given day in the off season.
Oh, wow.
So the best advice I can give you is, if you can get an internship or you can get involved at if it is a sport specific or hockey specific program you're interested in, do that and get around coaches and learn to talk to people and coach people. That's going to be the most important thing. All the information that you need to learn is out there. In the age of the internet, you can learn anything you want. You can get all the certifications you want. You can go to seminars. And most times those are probably better updated than maybe taking something at school. But the best thing you can do is immerse yourself in that. We used to work 12, 14-hour days nonstop with groups. And I look back now and it was crazy. Like we would just work and train and work and train and work and train. And we just kept growing. But that was the best thing I ever did to help me as a coach, because it taught me how to communicate to different types of people. Because at the end of the day, as a coach, you're trying to get the best out of a person, but everybody's different. Everybody has a different personality, and you can't just give them a pre-packaged message and expect them to respond. You have to get inside their head and find out what makes them tick. And I look back and I always think about those days at varsity hockey. That's where I got my 10,000 hours, probably more, but that's when I was pushed to really coach when you're tired and exhausted on many occasions.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, that's a great example. Yeah, there's definitely lots out there. Like my undergrad was in kin, and I actually ended up teaching at one point in my PhD a course on strength and conditioning. And it's like, I was like, this is not what my masters and PhDs in at all. But like, I was able to teach it still. And I did one of my first jobs really was training. Like I from North Bay, and I did dryland training, and because there was just nobody doing it, and it was a lot of fun. And I think you really hit on one of the big parts of training, which is like getting to know your athletes and how to communicate and coach them. And that's the whole psychology side. And you have your undergrad and or part of your undergrad in psych. So, but there's nothing, no books can teach you how to connect with people. You got to get out and do it. So
you still got to learn that stuff. Like you got
it's still helpful. And you do got to do the school stuff too. There is good things. It's not downgrade school, right? You can definitely learn things by doing different programs in school. There's a lot of the science behind it, and you need to know some of it, but, that was a great question. Good advice. Let's jump to Willem said, after your injury, how did you physically and mentally come back to your game the way you left, or even better? Yeah. I want to maybe talk just about that return.
Yeah. So that's something I left out there. I had my first hernia in my senior year. That year I actually had 2 surgeries. The first one didn't work. The second one was supposed to work. That took me to the rest of the season where I didn't get to play. And then I actually came in, and when I played in Toledo, I had a 3rd hernia surgery. So within a span of just under 2 years, I had those 3 pretty significant surgeries back in the day. Like they have a little bit better technology now, but they were going in there and trying to repair things. And this is probably one of the biggest reasons I got into strength conditioning and stuck with it. I was so frustrated with listening to different people. I'd go to one doctor that say this, I'd go to a physiotherapist, they say something else. And it was hard. It was, anybody who's injured mentally, it's hard because all you want to do is play and help your teammates. And that was a very tough time for me. But one of the things I realized I had to do was start researching myself. And it was a very slow process. One of the biggest mistakes I ever made was coming back too early, and I did that twice. And it happens to the best of us. And if I could say what you should do when you get injured is 100% make sure you're ready to go, because it's so easy to get injured again. But I decided, and I was so fed up with the information I was given, that I had to help myself. So that's when I really started to dive deep into strength conditioning and rehab and science. And the final time I rehabbed, I didn't use anybody. I just research, ask questions, ask people who were smarter than me, who have been in the field a lot longer. And I was still playing hockey. I still wanted to play. So I realized I had to be super diligent and disciplined. I couldn't just expect my body was going to magically heal and I was going to be able to play hockey again. I had to do the, lack for a better word, really boring stuff to rehab myself and get back to the point where I felt not 100% on the ice, because I never think you really get back to that, but I felt comfortable enough and safe enough to play the game of hockey. Yeah. And a lot of it was looking at my training, and I had to take out a lot of things that sometimes we just do things in training because we're told to do it or everyone else is doing it. I really had to look at it and say, every time I do this, it doesn't feel great. And I literally just went through and threw out all that stuff and found alternatives and found different way to train around my injury. And then that was probably a 1.5-year process, and I've never had an issue with it since.
Oh no, that's a cool story. I know definitely injuries can be devastating. Yeah, coming back too early is definitely something we want to avoid. Andrew asked, how many hours did you train a day when you were, I guess, playing pro hockey and as well as, you know, even at UMass Lowell?
So yeah, college is a little different from pro. Obviously, you play less games, so the games are almost cut in half or even less. So the majority of the time is spent training, and that was probably the best thing for me, just because I needed to train. I needed to put on weight. I didn't need to get huge, but I needed to become stronger to play at that level. So really the way the schedule goes, the first month is very intense. You're waking up at 6 a.m., you're training, you're going to school all day. After school, you're going back to the rink, you're practicing, you might get in another training session, and then you go home. And literally you're just exhausted. You go home, do your homework, make dinner, and sleep, and then you do it again. As the season goes on in college, NCAA, typically you're going to train at the beginning of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. The intensity of the workouts usually drop a little bit as you get closer to the weekend, because Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you have potential games. In pro, it's a little bit different. When you're playing in the East Coast or you're playing minor pro, you're traveling a lot and you're on a bus. You're not on a jet or anything like that. You're grinding it out on sometimes 18-hour bus rides. So you're training when you can, and then depending on what team you're on, some teams had set up training with the team, and then other teams you just didn't have it. Because of my background, I was always fine. But typically I would try to train twice a week. In season, I would try to do 2 strength training workouts a week. In the season, there'd probably be like a half an hour, 45 minutes. The odd one might be an hour, but in season, that's all you need. You really need to keep it simple. You need to stay strong. Strength really protects you in season. The off season, you're going to train anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours. And that's going to be a lot more intense training. That's kind of periodized for different phases to kind of get you to peak at the beginning of the season. Probably one of the biggest mistakes hockey players make is they work really hard in the off season, and then they completely shut down training in the in season. And you lose muscle mass. That's one of the biggest things that happens for hockey players because of how hard you're working. Simple training twice a week, 30 to 45 minutes of strength training with some power work mixed in is perfect, and it's going to keep you healthy.
Yeah. Well, those are definitely good insights. And I know I had to teach a lot about periodization. That's a huge big thing, especially in the off season. Maybe guys can hit you up for more on that. Isaac said a bit about you needed some years to grow before early in the call. And then how did that mentally and physically maybe help you so you could play at the NCAA level? So, you know, taking that time for growth, like obviously you're a bit of a late bloomer from a physical standpoint. So, and I know that's usually, you want to maybe just speak to that a bit?
Yeah. And when I guess when I went through minor hockey back then, if you were bigger, taller, bigger, stronger, you had the advantage. Like you got picked, you got fast tracked. It wasn't a small player's game, and as open as it is now. But I knew that once I hit junior and I went to camp that I wasn't ready physically just because of the physicality of the camp. Playing junior tier 2 for the Bramley Blues allowed me to play with some older players, but I think it was just less demanding. It was less intense. I think in terms of the OHL or that next level, that's a serious league. Like that's a big step. And it's almost like a pro. It's almost set up like a professional league in terms of how much you play, how much you travel, what the expectations are. And I think mentally I just wasn't ready for that jump. I was probably above average player, but I wasn't at that top tier ready to kind of compete at that level. So one, I knew I had to put some muscle on, and not a ton, but I knew I needed time to do that. And that doesn't happen overnight. Mm-hmm. And then the second part of it is, I knew playing at the junior level at the time, and I realized it probably through my halfway through my season that I needed to learn more about the game of hockey and get better on that side of it, not just, rely on skill or speed or anything like that. I really needed to be indispensable. I needed to be a guy who could be maybe a PK guy, a power play guy, whatever was needed. Because as you move up the ranks, if you are, one of the top scorers or whatever it is, every year you move up, everyone is that good. And you kind of need to differentiate yourself from the pack. Yeah. So I realized that, and I remember my parents talking to me about that when I was young. And when I went to school, I was probably 165 pounds. When I came home after my first year, I was 185.
Oh, wow.
So that just, going to school, training, going to the calf, eating as much as you can. Yeah. And that's what they tell you to do. They go to the calf and you got to eat. Some guys are telling you got to eat less, but I was the guy they were saying, you got to train, you got to eat. Yeah. So it was, you put in the work and you realize, okay, I'm getting older. I think part of it is, chemicals kicking in your body, but just that schedule of skating, training, eating continuously, mm-hmm. I saw the end of the tunnel there for sure.
Oh, that's cool. We got a couple more questions. We'll wrap it up. But Ryder said, and we kind of touched on this a bit earlier, but if you could give advice to a younger yourself with all the stuff you know now, what would it be?
Number one, and I didn't do this a lot, but I remember doing a little bit, is don't waste your time comparing yourself to others. At times the players today are at a disadvantage with all the information, and you could, the example I use is when I was younger, you could lose a game by 20 goals. No one would know for weeks except for the other team and you. There's games now that they're not even over yet, and people are like, oh, did you hear so-and-so's losing 11-0 and this person did it. Just throw it out the window. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. You're still going to do it, but do your best to clean up things like your social media feed on Instagram or what. If there's things on there that you look at something and it makes you feel like down that tunnel of like, why is that person doing that and I'm doing this? Just get rid of it. The second part of it would be just have a plan and just do a little bit more. Don't skip mm-hmm. days. If it's something you really love, mm-hmm. just keep going. I played as long as I did. I wasn't the best when I was younger at every age group. I certainly wasn't at the elite level. I look at so many players that were better than me that just quit, maybe because they didn't love the game or got to a situation that they didn't enjoy. But I played as long as I could because I kept playing. Mm-hmm. I kept showing up. I kept playing. I loved doing it. So that would be my advice. If it's something you love, keep going and be realistic with yourself when you're expecting certain things to happen.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. And then Peter, I think you had a question. It was just about, the highest levels you played. So, and that would have been at the East Coast and playing in Europe and NCAA. So yeah. I don't know, Peter, did you have any other questions? He got his hand raised, but I think he actually might have left. So we'll wrap it up. I really appreciate you coming on and having all this, the insights that you're able to share today. I definitely got a lot out of it. I think you've got a really cool story and great journey. So hopefully everybody enjoyed it today, and definitely make sure everyone says thank you. And I'm sure we'll be in touch again soon. So thanks so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.